he should have served jail time for I Am Sam. Honestly, like
a lot of people, except the people responsible for the soundtrack of I Am Sam, should have served jail time for I Am Sam.
It takes a lot to get an homage in Tropic Thunder.
Welcome to 1999, the podcast. I am John Brooks,
and I'm Julia Sermons.
Julia, what's new? Anything good?
Yeah, I got to see. I had a special date night out, and I got to see the new production of Glenn Ross.
So jealous of that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was it as good as they say?
It was pretty good. I think Kieran Culkin was actually kind of the weak part because he kind of was just playing Roman Roy, in a bit, and didn't really get a grasp of the character as this kind of crazed alpha male, that didn't really work for him. But everybody else is playing the exact part they should be playing and doing a wonderful job with it. Bob Odenkirk was especially great. No surprise there.
Odenkirk, what a late career revival that dude had.
Were you online the day that he had dropped and had that heart attack on the Better Call Saul?
Oh yeah.
It was an amazing day on the internet because it brought everybody of all political stripes.
Save Bob. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all united in their concern for Bob Odenkirk.
Yes.
Desire for his recovery.
You can't take him away from us.
And it worked.
It did work. It absolutely worked. See? The power of collective action, i.e. saying nice things about Bob Odenkirk on Twitter to save his life. If only the opposite worked for certain people. Anyway, we'll not talk about that. Today... We needed a good movie, so we got an interesting. I love this movie. We'll see. Whatever. We'll talk about it. Today we're looking at the 161st highest grossing film of 1999, opening December the 3rd on just 3 theaters and taking in an impressive 31,562 per screen average. It's a lot. Going on to make just over $4 million on a $30 million budget, but at its widest release was only 239 locations in March of 2000, starring Sean Penn and Samantha Morton with supporting roles and cameos from Uma Thurman, Brad Garrett, John Waters, Anthony LaPaglia, everybody's favorite Australian from the Bronx, Brian Markinson, and a bunch of other people, written and directed by Woody Allen. Today, we are discussing Sweet and Lowdown.
I never met anybody that keeps their feelings so locked up.
I let my feelings come out in my music.
Yeah, well, maybe if you let your feelings out in real life, then your music would be even better.
Don't talk. Try to visualize it. You're looking up, and there it is. Gold, beautiful moon. And I'm coming down, you guys are playing. It's a stupid idea. Fast worker. You're not that much resistance. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. You like that? I knew you would. They say I'm a wonderful lover. I like women, but I don't need them. That's the way it is when you're a true artist.
Gosh, not only are you vain and egotistical, but you have genuine crudeness.
Good-hearted, genuinely sweet person. Won't get you anywhere in life.
What do you think of when you play? What goes through your mind?
Yeah, that I'm underpaid. I think about that sometimes.
If you could just let your feelings out, you might even play better.
Why Emmet Ray? Because he was interesting. Sort of pathetic in a way. He was flamboyant and obnoxious, and he was funny. To me, Emmet Ray was a fascinating character.
I'm Emmet Ray. I'm the greatest guitar player in the world.
Julia, what's Sweet and Lowdown about?
Okay, so this is a mockumentary. So suspend your disbelief for a moment and imagine that Woody Allen is making a film about the totally not made up Emmet Ray, a mostly forgotten jazz guitarist from the 1930s. Emmet, played by Sean Penn, is a truly great artist, and boy, does he know it. He is egomaniacal, erratic, and eccentric. His favorite way to relax is shooting rats at the dump. Sandwiched between scenes of his musical performances, Emmet has a series of picaresque adventures during his quest for stardom. Along the way, he hooks up with Hattie, played by Samantha Morton, a mute woman who is devoted to him even though he gives her that whole "don't fall in love with me, I'm not the Marianne kind" shtick. After he finally ditches Hattie, Emmet marries a woman named Blanche, played by Uma Thurman. Blanche is fascinated by Emmet's idiosyncrasies and emotional limitations because she's a writer who can use him as material. No matter how much success Emmet achieves, his playing falls just short of the soulful music of his idol and rival, the gypsy jazz guitarist Django Reinhardt. Once Blanche leaves Emmet for a gangster, Emmet returns to Hattie only to discover that she's married with a family. After this, Allen tells us Emmet basically vanishes from history. He's made only a few more last recordings, and they finally match the emotional vulnerability of the great Django Reinhardt.
Sweet and Lowdown was a welcome end to what many saw as a mid-90s slump for Allen, who had released a string of movies that had been received with mixed or sometimes scathing reviews, like 1995's Mighty Aphrodite, 1996's Everyone Says I Love You, 1997's Deconstructing Harry, and 1998's Celebrity. Sweet and Lowdown felt like a return to form for many, with Allen playing to his comedic strengths and leaning on a familiar genre while ambitiously creating an authentic jazz-era atmosphere. And this is not a coincidence because Allen had written the script earlier in his career, deciding to revisit the film in no small part because of that perceived slump. And in casting Penn, he caught one of his generation's greatest actors at the height of his game, coming off career-defining performances in Carlito's Way, Dead Man Walking, and Hurly Burly. It has a certified fresh rating of 77 on Rotten Tomatoes and a 70 on Metacritic, and both Penn and Morton were nominated for Oscars. In Entertainment Weekly, Lisa Schwartzbaum gave the film a B+, writing, quote, Allen draws a snappy, loose-limbed performance from Penn, the perfect tantrum-throwing talent, twitching and squinting through cigarette smoke as he noodles Ray's favorite tune, I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles. In fact, guitarist Howard Alden makes Ray's music. The whole soundtrack, arranged by Dick Hyman, is divine. And in the consistently superb Morton, the director finds, heaven help her, a new muse, radiant and vulnerably funny sad, in the Giulietta Messina manner of all his best girls. Fashionable starlets Uma Thurman and Gretchen Mol play better-dressed sweethearts. In the Miami News-Times, Andy Klein wrote, quote, Sweet and Lowdown falls perhaps in the upper middle rank of Allen's films. No, it's not Manhattan or Purple Rose of Cairo or even Bullets Over Broadway, but it is engaging, touching, and frequently funny. Maybe because his hero is inarticulate and his heroine is mute, Allen relies far more than usual on physical comedy than on verbal jokes that are his strongest comic suit. Not surprisingly, Penn is first-rate as a heel who can't deal with his own best instincts. He's also extremely convincing as a musician. Early on, Allen makes sure we see Penn's face and his fretwork on continuous shots to give the illusion that he's really creating the music. That said, a huge amount of credit should be given to guitarist Howard Alden, who actually plays the tunes that are crucial to the film. Music is all Emmet has. Where Alden's solos not so entrancing, Emmet would just be another irritating Joe. Warm reviews also came from Janet Maslin, Roger Ebert, Richard Corliss, and the delightful curmudgeon David Edelstein. But not all critics were sweet. Ready? Some were. Wait for it. Low down. Is that good? Is that good?
Nailed
okay,
it.
Great. Thank you. Among them, The Guardian's Peter Bradshaw, who wrote, quote, Sweet and Lowdown is another eccentric indulgence for the director, a minor work which does not feel as if the master has lavished much on it, either in feeling or craftsmanship, and everything in it, the music, the settings, the farcical comedy of love and loss, has been done better and more lovingly in his other films. It's entertaining, and his fan base will enjoy it, but for the first time, it looks as if Woody Allen is beginning to treat us with something approaching negligence. So there we go. That's what the critics thought of Sweet and Lowdown. And we are going to talk about some problematic people in a pretty great movie, I think. And to help us is an actress, a director, a writer. You know her from, let's see, The Handmaid's Tale. You know her from Supernatural. You might know her from Designated Survivor. There's some other ones, and a bunch of other stuff. She's a busy person, and also someone I've been friends with for 30 years. So joining us to talk about Sweet and Lowdown is Liz Whitmere. Hi, Liz. What's going on?
Hi, John. Hi, Julia. Well, I just watched Sweet and Lowdown. I had never seen it. I watched it this afternoon, so it's like fresh. And
wow, that is very fresh. Yeah.
Oh boy, friends. I have thoughts.
Okay, great. I have thoughts too. I'm sure Julia has thoughts. Let's talk about your work and what you're doing. So what have you been working on lately? You live in Canada,
yes.
now the free world. So congratulations to you for picking the right country in the country lottery these days. And you've done a lot of work in the last few years in like television shows and all that sort of thing. But you are shifting your focus towards like writing and directing lately, right? So what's new? What projects are in the work, Liz?
Most recently, the thing that I was pushing hard is a short film proof of concept for a feature called Cold, which is a dark comedy body horror kind of a deal. Nice. About a woman who died sometime last week but didn't notice. And she's actively decomposing and can't figure out what's going on. And her partner and her doctor and her friends are all telling her it's totally normal for midlife to feel this way. And then things completely fall apart. It's a cathartic, primal scream kind of a movie. Can't imagine that it's at all autobiographical or related to anything that any women between the ages of 35 and 60 have experienced.
Interesting. So is this like is it like a Sixth Sense situation where she's like Bruce Willis and like doesn't know that she's dead, or like how is that? What's the canon law of how this all works?
The canon law is she is actually dead, and no one else perceives it accurately. So she has a loving, caring partner who's trying to help her out by like scheduling manicures and bringing her a cupcake and encouraging self-care, which are all nice, positive things, but he just doesn't have the tools to do the help that she needs.
Because she's dead.
And she doesn't have the tools to communicate, no, I think you're wrong. This is actually a catastrophe. It kind of came out of, I've been in a number of meetings and situations and kind of witnessing the world at large and we're seeing it now as well. Yeah. Where there's a situation, and I'm not going to get specific, where people should be screaming at the top of their lungs. And a lot of people are smiling and speaking calmly and talking about how, well, we got to look at things from all sides, when the normal human reaction feels like it should be flipping the table and setting the building on fire.
Yeah.
Because it's a big emergency. Do something, please. So that feeling, I've been sitting with that feeling since 2016 and more and more and more and more. And it's not, this isn't a particularly political movie by any stretch, but it does express a sensation.
So you're either pushing sort of the definition of what we understand as like movie dead, or is she kind of more like a zombie kind of situation? Is that like not a ghost, right? So not Bruce Willis in Sixth Sense, physically informed, but dead. Yeah. So like a Walking Dead kind of dead.
Yeah, technically she's a zombie. She's a corpse that is moving around through the world. She doesn't hunger for brains. She's not trying to turn anybody else. It's like an emotional zombie movie with a little bit of body horror as she like falls to pieces.
I like it. An emotional zombie movie. That's should be the subtitle.
Yeah. One
that's
very, very kind colleague called it the substance before the substance. It's kind of addressing
oh,
similar themes.
okay.
So I made this movie in 2023, and then the substance came out, and I was like, oh, cool. Look how zeitgeisty.
You bastards.
Well, no, it's not the same thing. I love it when someone does something similar to what I'm doing. I'm like, yes, that means the instinct was the right one.
That's a nice way of thinking about it. It drives me crazy when people do that to me. But
Fair.
like, no, that's mine. That's my idea. What are we doing? Doesn't happen very often, but when it does, I get mad. Anyways, all right, all right, I picked this movie because Julie and I had done a couple of movies that were like not great for sort of thematic reasons, and I thought this would be interesting because I remember I had seen this movie before. I didn't remember a lot about it. I just remembered Samantha Morton being great.
Yeah.
It was during the time where I was like very much into Sean Penn as an actor, and I am not a big Woody Allen fan, even pre-cancellation Woody Allen. But I also thought it'd be really interesting in the fact that like it is so heavily features to like very canceled people. That there would be a lot to talk about in terms of like separating art from artist and all that sort of thing. And also just, I'm always interested to see what other people think of Woody Allen because I like a few of his movies, but I've never really been like a Woody Allen guy. All right, so Liz, I'm going to start with you. Give me pre-cancellation, nothing to do with all the problematic stuff, but give me your sort of like, where does Woody Allen fit into your life as like a consumer of media?
Well, I think I want to give broader context first. So I grew up like you did in the era of movies that we grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
Weinstein was God. There was a certain culture of misogyny in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And a lot of what got made, a lot of the stuff that we were watching was influenced by the people sitting in positions of power, making these choices about what gets greenlit, what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I foolishly, naively, or whatever, looked to the media I was consuming as kind of a behavioral guidebook. And I think a lot of people do. It's kind of a perversion of if I can see it, I can be it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of internalized, this is how the world works, that I think we've all had to undo since then.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of this is what men are like, this is what women are like, this is what romance looks like, this is what love looks like, is super messed up.
Mm-hmm.
So given all of that, that's roughly how I feel about Woody Allen. Just not to be too glib about it, but just there's so much. Let's all admire this person for what he himself suggests are fallible qualities.
Yeah.
It's this weird like pedestaling of shittiness that I don't know. I think maybe I'm too old now to put up with it. Does that make sense? Even like I talk to my younger self and I'm like, what did you have to, no, stop it.
No, I think you articulated like what my issue with Woody Allen was, like why I was always, I think like you and I are of like a perfect age to like not like Woody Allen because well, I think in part because the movies he was making when like we started watching movies like weren't his best, right? Like the sort of like mid, like as I mentioned in the intro, like the sort of mid to late 90s movies. But also like I was kind of like there was something about him, like the whole Mia Farrow Suni Previn thing happened, when we were like young teens, and I remember that being a big news story, and there was something about his whole vibe that like was just off-putting, and I was like, this guy's kind of problematic, like before all the stuff happened, and then like, but also juxtapose that against the fact that I was like, I thought Bullets Over Broadway was great, and I thought Annie Hall is a great movie, and I'm like, okay, so like these things can exist at the same time. But it was, there was certainly people kind of a generation before us, I think, who were like Woody Allen devotees for whom Woody Allen was
Yeah.
like a generational important filmmaker. And yeah, I think you've nailed sort of exactly where I kind of have always fallen as far as Woody Allen goes. Julia, as a film scholar, Woody Allen is a person of film for whom film scholars is obviously an important figure. So, like, what's your Woody Allen story?
So I think I'm like not that much younger than you, just like a couple
Yeah,
of
you're
years.
not that much younger.
So like I do remember. I think Bullets Over Broadway was definitely my first Woody Allen film, and which my parents showed me. Like they thought it was okay to show me, and I just totally fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And the Sunyi stuff was like happening on the side in the newspapers, and people were talking about it, and I kind of didn't fully understand it. I just knew it was kind of gross, and like there was this like thing in my adolescent mind just being like, don't delve too deep into this, like it will it will fuck you up in some way. So I just kind of like over there to the side.
Yeah.
And I really fell in love with Manhattan Murder Mystery because it played on repeat on Comedy Central when I was just like watching Comedy
Oh
Central
God,
all the
yeah, I
time.
remember that. Yeah.
And like it was really seductive, and it's like like it's like portrayal of like romance and neuroses, because it's it's Alan Alda and Angelica Houston just like charming the pants off each other. Everybody has an age appropriate love object. It's kind of like, Diane Keaton and Woody Allen back together after Annie Hall as kind of almost the same characters, but they've worked it out. It's just a very fun, entertaining movie. And like, I think as an entree into Woody Allen, it was like pretty benign one, even if it's not his best work. But I sort of worked backwards from like being a comedy nerd to like going back to his like some of his albums. My dad gave me some of his comedy albums, and like the stuff from like Sleepers, and like all those Everything You Want to Know About Sex But We're Afraid to Ask. Like I kind of discovered all those in college. And then like as I was becoming like a cinema studies scholar, I like finally went into the more serious famous ones, of which I think Crimes and Misdemeanors is probably my favorite to this day. But I definitely was like, as a young woman of a certain age, Woody Allen pilled, in the sense of like, oh, I want to like live in New York and have these neuroses and go swanning about and talking and fetching all the time. And it was like an image of adulthood that like was to some degree aspirational to me. And it's weird when I think of it now, because it's just like, oh, that the question of age appropriateness just was like, it was able to be like totally, I could just push that out of my mind into a box. Like that didn't seem to matter in some disturbing way.
Yeah.
He's made so many bad movies over such a long course of time that it's like, but seriously, like it's
doing like one a year for a long time. That's kind of, it's hard to not, right?
Yeah. That it's like, he kind of made it easy on himself, because it's like, we're not talking about these masterpieces anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's not like do we need to separate the art from the artist? It's like not a particularly salient question when we're talking about like Curse of the Jade Scorpion. Like
right. Exactly.
It's kind of like by his own like enshittification of his filmography, he for a long time he made the questions about his private life moot until they weren't again.
Right. Yeah, and I think like you bring up an interesting point about sort of like the way that one of the things that's kind of inescapable about Woody Allen is that whether or not you've ever like even seen his movies, there's something about sort of, post like, late 20th century, early 21st century New York DNA that like Woody Allen just is part of. Like it's like, you know, Lou Reed. Like it's like in it, like it's just part of like the landscape of like what New York is and sort of the popular imagination. And yeah, I mean, it's sort of interesting. It's like, it's weird because he was doing like a movie a year for a long time. There are within his sort of his pantheon, like objectively incredible movies, like within that, but a lot of shit, like a lot of Curse of the Jade Scorpions. And it's like, I guess like my question would be is like, is he as kind of fundamental to modern filmmaking as people think? Is he in the ranks of like the Robert Altmans and like Brian De Palmas and right, like those kinds of figures, like Stanley Kubrick's? Or is he just a guy who like had the privilege of making a movie all the fucking time and like occasionally, you know, once every 5 times, like really struck gold?
Yeah, I don't think I place him at the level of Altman or De Palma. And I don't know how much of that is because of like the fact that his world is quite small.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
there have been plenty of directors who've just mined the same material for years and years and years and have found enough new to make it interesting. Yeah, like I said, I would put I like Crimes and Misdemeanors for the fact that it does have this darker edge to it than most of his films, and that's why I think I would call it his kind of most interesting and most compelling for me film.
Yeah.
You know, I would put Hannah and Her Sisters up there as well.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
And I think, but I think what's interesting is that like he's very much borrowing from Bergman, from Chekhov, from, you know, all these other things that really like are taking him outside just like the mind of his own neurosis and like and the nasty habit he has of casting a lead that just plays Woody Allen, who's just playing a version of Woody Allen, and is dating an 18-year-old girl.
Like Kenneth Branagh in Celebrity, which is like that's one of the most mind blowing Woody Allen actors is Woody Allen's I can think of. Go ahead.
Oh, so shall we dive in on that note?
Yeah, let's dive in on that note.
Sean Penn's performance.
Sean Penn's performance.
Is this a Woody Allen performance or isn't it? That's a genuine question for me.
It is. And that is a tough question. Liz, take it away. What do you think?
Ooh. I mean, okay, so what I see the performance is beautiful. I think he did a wonderful job embodying that character. The character is reprehensible. And the amount of neurosis and self-involvement and narcissism and odd fixation, I can easily read that as a projection of the auteur onto the screen. And can you imagine, sorry, just sidebar for a second. I cannot imagine having permission to make a movie a year about myself and have half of them be bad and still get financed. Can you imagine?
And when they lose $26 million in budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. It blows my mind. And it, unfortunately, at this point makes me mad because I'm like, how many not self-referential films didn't get made?
Yeah.
Because he was busy making these. Sorry, not to circle back to this, like, but yeah, I think there's a certain amount of projection there. I don't think it's exactly the same brand of, hey, look, it's Woody Allen being played by somebody else, but I think it's a version. That's my take. I think it's a beautiful physical performance from Sean Penn. He did a gorgeous job. It was very believable, and it really got under my skin. So it's very effective art making right there. I was just like, oh, this guy. And he managed to make him in glimpses a little sympathetic, but I don't know, man. It was just, there were so many so many situations it would have been so easy to extricate from.
Yeah. So what I kept thinking about while watching this was that I think one of the reasons that like Woody Allen got away with so much for so long is because there isn't really anything like self-aggrandizing. Like it is obvious that he is sort of channeling himself through this character, right? And like he does that a lot, but the character like is despicable and kind of unlikable. And he's not sort of like being like, but you gotta hand, like there's nothing like redeeming about him, right? It just is sort of like
Well,
this
except
like
that everyone agrees that he's a genius.
is a
He
genius,
calls
right? There's
himself a
nothing,
genius, and everyone else is like, yes, he's a genius, and he gets away with all of his shit
right?
because he's a genius, and he doesn't have to be a good person because he's a genius. And I want to strangle him.
And all of that stuff, interestingly, is told and not shown, right? That's part of the documentary stuff where they're all reinforcing this idea, which is never actually shown in the performance or in the actual script of the narrative itself, which I think is really, again, kind of interesting. Like, as someone who like never really cared about Woody Allen like personally or his whole shtick, like again, I just like really like a few of his movies a lot. This kind of thing never bothered me, and so like. That I think is why I'm really kind of drawn to this movie. Like why I just kind of love it is because the Sean Penn performance is just so phenomenal. It, like as a work of both like over the top ridiculous comedy, but like also really soulful drama. Like he finds some real humanity in this like absurd character who is just so sort of like slapstick and farcical in the way that he's portrayed. But Penn has this incredible like well of depth to him, right, as a performer. And then also just like all of the supporting characters are fantastic, all of the supporting roles are fantastic. Like his best friend, the drummer, is so great, and then Samantha Morton in this like incredible performance where she never says anything, and like it's still incredibly like you feel like she talks but she doesn't, she never says a word. It's a really sort of transfixing thing. They're just kind of like on its surface, I'm like, yeah, this is great. But then I kind of like, this is why sort of Woody Allen was able to get away with it, because he was never selling you the idea that these people are like anything other than despicable geniuses. Right. And I think that's kind of part of like what his kind of cover was for his various malfeasances that he is accused of doing over the course of his life.
Well, it's hiding behind hiding behind, I feel like it's easy to cover for bad behavior by saying, look what an asshole I am.
Yes, exactly right. Yes. An irredeemable asshole who's unlikable.
And he's doing it by proxy over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah, and funny.
Because I shoot rats in the dump, and that's like my favorite pastime.
I really think this character is absolutely 100% autistic, just for the record.
Oh, yeah.
This is my feeling.
Yes.
Now, not just because of the trains. Shooting rats is not an autistic behavior. But the fixation on odd hobbies and the, virtuoso musical talent and the trains is a shorthand.
Yeah.
They never explain it beyond he likes to watch trains. Like that feels like, come on. Why don't you have him lining up toy cars and like stacking soup cans while you're at it?
So I actually had some problems with this performance.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I found it extremely mannered in a way. Like I couldn't tell, like, is this just kind of like him trying to do like a hot cha cha cha, I'm from the 30s, or if it's meant to be channeling Alan. But I found the voice just to be very mannered, and his like and the comedy, like his expressions just seemed very sort of contrived and like a little trying to be lovably goofy in a way that didn't quite work. And between that and the shooting the rats at the dump, like that actually made me think a lot of like Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And once I saw that, I just like couldn't get it out of my head.
They're very similar characters, like weird geniuses who are also incredibly stupid and like narcissistic and and fucked up. But yes.
And I just felt I didn't get enough of the soulful man who expresses himself through his music. I just felt like that there wasn't enough of that there to counterbalance the issues I had with the performance.
Yeah, but that's the thing that makes Django Reinhardt better than him, right? Is that he doesn't have a soul. Like he just is this like savant who's very, very good at playing the guitar, kind of like nonchalantly, right? When he did the whole like I really love the talent show scene.
Yeah. Oh my
just
God.
like and to me that sort of just like sums up the entire character. Like there's no effort put into it. He's able to like lie through his teeth, and he puts on a show, and he's just like he is just purely 100% showman, right? And he's very upfront about the fact that like there's not much underneath, which is why his like ideal match is a woman who never talks, because he can have both sides of the conversation, and she doesn't need to say anything, and she can just be like, "You're funny and goofy, and I like your talent," or whatever.
As soon as the line of dialogue, "Oh, she doesn't talk, she's mute,"
Yeah.
occurred, I said out loud, alone in a room, to my computer, "Oh, of course she is. Of course she is. Of course she's not allowed to talk. That's perfect. Oh, great. And she's cute, and she's physically small, and she's not allowed to speak.
Yeah.
And he's going to be a dickhead the whole movie." And then that's how it played out. Sorry, I don't know. Am I allowed to say?
Oh, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Wonderful.
we are profane all the time.
Oh, great. Okay.
So wait, Julia, I don't know. We also have never talked really about Sean Penn, and what are your opinions on Sean Penn as an actor? Not a person.
No, I think he's fine. Like I think
really,
I think he's very good.
Fine?
Yeah, no, it's just like not quite for me.
Okay.
Like I'll see him in. It's just he's not like my top kind of like most gripping leading men.
Really?
Here.
Wow. Okay.
But that's like
Who
I've seen.
is your most gripping leading man?
What I put above him? I don't know. I guess older actors, just to be honest, like someone like to be like a gene. Like he's not at the like. I kind of feel like he's been pegged as like the Pacino or De Niro of his generation, and I just can't. Like I would pick Nicolas Cage over him in most things, I would say.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
But I mean, like he's wonderful in Dead Man Walking. He's wonderful in Mystic River. You know, like he's absolutely a top tier talent, but it's just not. It's not the one I connect to the most. And also, like I think
that's fair. Yeah,
he should have served jail time for I Am Sam. Honestly, like
a lot of people, except the people responsible for the soundtrack of I Am Sam, should have served jail time for I Am Sam. But the soundtrack
it takes
slaps.
A lot to get an homage in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah.
Liz, what do you feel about Sean Penn?
I mean, I think he's got an interesting face.
Yes. Yeah.
He's a competent performer. Like he's capable of embodying the character. He can take the risks. I don't feel like I'm always watching the same guy, which is something.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not my favorite. You know, it's not like, ooh, it's a Sean Penn movie, I'm going to go see that. That's not. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm lukewarm on him, but I don't want to. I think even though I'm inside this business, it's possible to take for granted the amount of work that goes into any level of believable performance. Yeah. So I want to flag that liability in myself, that even though I know how much work it takes for me to deliver a believable performance in front of a camera, I have no idea what it's like when you're a hugely visible celebrity carrying the film. So that's a different game. That's a totally different thing. hats off to anybody who can handle that kind of pressure. And I think you have to be a raging egomaniac to do it.
Yeah.
Make the case for Sean Penn, John.
Yeah. Yeah, John.
I mean, like, so Sean Penn and Johnny Depp to me are like both the same kind of actor. They're both the same kind of abusive asshole. They're both the same sort of person that I have to like very carefully consume because of the way that they are deeply problematic people. But for me, every time that I see, I cannot think, like going back to Fast Times at Ridgemont High, like I can't think of a role, including fucking I Am Sam, like, which is awful. But even like, you know, Milk, which again, like, you know, retrospectively is problematic in some ways because of the way that like we don't cast gay actors as gay characters. But like it is a phenomenal performance. I cannot think of any Sean Penn role that he's like phoned in, and I try to think of like what is he like phoned in, and the one that like comes to mind is like David Fincher's The Game, but like he's even good in that. Like it's not even phoned in. It's just like it's kind of a non-character, but like he's good in it. I've never seen him in anything that he doesn't disappear into, and he just is so like consumed by the characters that he plays in a way that like Depp is too. I think that's what I love about Depp is that he as sort of recognizable as Johnny Depp is and as like unique looking as he is, he always just like fully becomes like whatever he's playing, even in like bad movies. And I'd never seen this side of Sean Penn before. Like there's this like this sort of slapstick side of him that is just so like effortless. Like he just, I don't know, just does it so well. And the way that he playing music, right, which is not easy. It's not like pretending to play music is like notoriously one of the hardest things for like actors to do who don't know how to play an instrument. And I wasn't sure if he was actually playing the guitar. Like I was pretty sure like somebody else was actually doing it for him and he was just really good at like running the fret. But I bought it and I had to like look up that somebody else you know did all the musical work for him. And I think that's just because I always kind of, I don't know, like it's again, like I can't, Sean Penn's very problematic as a person. And you know, that should be taken into consideration, but I've never been able to like take my eyes off of him whenever he's on screen. I can't. That's my pitch.
It's a good pitch. I mean, I buy it. I believe you when you say that. I believe that you believe that, John.
Thank you. I do believe it. I do. What about Samantha Morton's silent performance here?
Oh my God, that scene on the bench when he says he's leaving.
Yeah.
I have two teenagers, and we talk about we joke about a face called upside down mouth, which is I can't do it on command. I can only do it when I'm in a particular kind of like comical grump. I have one kid who can do it on command and another who can sometimes do it on command. And it's just that cartoon inverted smile, mouth shape. Mm-hmm. And she does it, and it's the face an infant makes when they're starting to cry. She is so plugged into primal emotive state. Like, she's a baby, and I don't say that as a insult. Like, she's pure channel. It's so beautiful, and her physicality is so animal. Mm-hmm. She's more like a cat than she is like a person in this. Like, she's just very, very focused on her sandwiches and her desserts. And I love that in a gal, you know, like it's the fact that they let her eat is great. We don't see women getting to eat enough. I don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed her performance. I am sad for her character.
Yeah.
That she had to put up with that dickhead.
Yeah.
You know, but I felt huge like affection and protectiveness for that character. And she did a beautiful job. well deserved all the accolades.
Yeah. Julia?
Yeah, wonderful, lovely performance. I think, yeah, I think what you said about her being kind of like plugged in, um, it resonates with me because it's just feeling like this like really intense sense of presence in the moment, and of just kind of like appraisal and like openness to the world that I think
Yeah.
makes the character just really special. And I think like there's this really, I don't want to say hacky because it's not hacky, it's kind of like a necessary storytelling unit in stories about music, but there's like the the moment when the person who's usually the love interest or maybe the conductor or mentor or whoever hears the musician play and is just like, you know, blown away by it. And it's like it's because it's like I think it's something you need to have in a lot of stories about music, but it can be so cliched that it's hard to do. And when you see that moment where he after they've slept together, he finally plays his guitar for her and she's standing in the bathroom and you just see
Oh
her
God.
face becoming totally entranced by the music. Like there is something that was just so pure and totally believable about that moment. Um, and it's just like one of the moments where you see completely why, despite this man being who he is, like she's following him because of the music on a certain level.
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering that your thoughts on this point as well, which is like, so there's not a lot that makes sense about like what she sees in him, because again, all he does is talk about like what an asshole he is and then acts like an asshole. Um, but he makes great music. Are we and we never get her perspective because she doesn't talk, so she doesn't tell us like what she's thinking. But is and this is very like, again, Woody Allen psychology here, is what she falls in love with the music or something else about him? I kept having this debate with myself, like in my head. It's like, what is it she's seeing in him here? uh does she like that he talks all the time and she doesn't at all, and that he's her opposite, or does she just like fall in love with his talent? um I don't know. Settle my own internal debate because I still haven't decided what I think about that.
Well, they keep talking about how dumb she is,
Yeah.
right? Like there's a lot of scene setting for her to be cognitively impaired.
Yeah.
Which I don't buy for a second.
No.
And that it felt like a setup. It felt like it felt manipulative from the storytelling perspective. I felt manipulated by that framing of this character, because it put me in a position where I couldn't not root for her, and I couldn't not be wanting her to stay as far away as possible from this guy, because the whole world is conspiring to set her up to be vulnerable to his dubious instincts and his bad behavior. I don't know if I can answer the question about what she sees in him. Like she's eager to go to bed with him. She's not unaware of why she's in his apartment. Like she's a woman of appetite.
Yeah.
For food, for sex, for music. Like she's really, I think, sensorially open, right? Like she wants all the experiences. And she initiates. If she had not initiated when she first, that was before she heard him play music too. So maybe it's the talking all the time thing. I don't know. I struggled with this because I was like, it feels like Woody Allen proxy again. Like,
yeah.
I'm an obnoxious, incessantly chatty, annoying person who's super misogynistic, and I keep telling you you've got brain damage where you dropped as a baby or something, and that's enough to be attractive. I don't know, man.
Yeah, this is where when this started going on, I was like, oh, this really reminds me of Federico Fellini's La Strada,
Yep.
and like apparently that was intentional.
Yeah.
Um, and I think this is where because the analog character played by Giulietta Mazzina, who's like one of the great screen actors of all time, like she really has a lot of like she's in worse circumstances because she's essentially sold in slavery to this guy who drags him around as part of her circus, but she has a lot more power to speak and power of resistance, and it's a much deeper, fuller character that gives you more of a sense of her motivations and her motivations under limited options. And so, yeah, I think it is like her character could have been bigger,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
still have been just as powerful.
I would have watched a movie about her.
Yes. Yeah.
More happily, I think. And maybe all the men that she goes through in her life.
Yeah.
I would watch the hell out of that movie. That would be great.
Woody Allen's never going to write that movie, though. So
no, God, because it centers a woman's point of view. God forbid.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think, well, maybe it says something to the performance, because again, I'd only seen this like once, and I barely remembered. I remembered like moods and scenes. Very much the scene that was burned into my mind from watching it so long ago, and still slaps, is the moon scene. And it's just so goddamn funny. And like Penn's performance of it, like physically, is just great.
I was like,
but
Dr. Keaton, it was great.
It is. It's like cringe and like depressing and hilarious, and it's all the feels at the same time. But I remember her being in this movie more than she is. Like, she doesn't actually have a ton of screen time in this movie, and that probably speaks to like how profound a performance it is. That she actually is only in, I think, like quite a bit less than half of the movie.
Right.
Maybe like a quarter of it. Like I didn't add up the minutes, but it's not a ton. Which is always like, it's like the famous sort of benchmark for this is like Michael Keaton in Beetlejuice, right? Where I think he has 12 minutes of screen time in like both movies. Like, yeah. And I think whatever it was, like in the second one, they made sure it was the exact same amount of screen time as in the first one, and it's like 17 minutes or something like that. Some ridiculous like small amount of money for a 2-hour time for a 2-hour movie. And it's very similar to that. That this is she's sort of the highlight of this, and the thing that I like deeply remember. And then I was like, oh, she's actually a fairly minor part overall of like the actual screen time of the movie, which is like, that speaks to her, obviously. And like,
oh my God, I would watch her in an empty room. Like, yeah. It was staggering.
Yeah.
And I felt sad that performance, not to shit on the movie, but I felt sad that performance was in this movie, because it seemed to serve a purpose that made me grumpy about about the purpose it was serving.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things where it's like I didn't know anything really about sort of how problematic Woody Allen was 25 years ago. I just don't care about him that much now, and like I still, again, like people have different amounts of how much they care about Woody Allen, and this is one of the Woody Allen movies that I like think about Woody Allen the least, even though he shows up in the like documentary parts every once in a while.
Right.
I don't really associate this movie with Woody Allen, and I feel like the ones that I like the most are the ones that like I think about Woody Allen the least. Like Match Point, right? Like being one of them.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is, this one is sort of taken over by Sean Penn and Samantha Morton, and the thing is, like, now I'm wrestling with the fact of like how problematic the Woody Allen elements of it are, and how obvious they are to sort of him channeling or sort of like transmitting, right, his neuroses and his confessing to his like dark side, right, as he's telling the story. So
Have you seen the Alan v. Farrow documentary?
no.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about in it, and I just like would recommend seeing it before you talk about it. But like, there's this interesting part where they do talk about his films, and like they go to whatever university has his archives, and they do this really effective montage where you see they're looking through all the copies of his scripts, and it's always like there's always this character, like, right, young girl, 18 years old, you know, like this character, 18 years old, like it's always there's always this woman who's, you know, 18, who's the in the at least the first draft of every script. And it's just like it's a way of really, you know, given that the rest of the film is talking about the accusations and the case in its particulars, like the fact that this bit is added in there is, I think, really interesting in terms of like making a case about, can you really separate the art from the artist?
Yeah.
When, like, even though I myself lean more to the side of separating the art from the artist, I thought this was a really powerful way to counter that in the documentary, which everyone should watch. It's really good.
I'll have to check it out. I have to, part of the, I struggle with this as well, this like art versus artist thing. And I also am really aware that as storytellers, like filmmakers as storytellers, have a responsibility to be aware of what they're glorifying.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be, if I looked back on my body of work and saw that there was an 18-year-old girl portrayed as a sex object or a love interest in every single project, I would be embarrassed about that. Unless I had a global public humiliation fetish, in which case I'd be delighted.
Sure.
And it feels like the Woody Allen self-flagellation bit twigs that, like, what are you getting out of this, my friend?
Yeah.
Is there a payoff in the act of insulting yourself and while simultaneously positioning yourself as this like irresistible dude?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and you would hope people would evolve when they realize. Like, I think about things that like
this
I wrote.
Time she's 21.
I think about stuff I wrote like 20 years ago, and I'm like, oh my god, there were so many like awful tropes in here that I didn't even like realize were tropes, and now I do, and so would never do that again, right? Like that's right. the normal way of going about this, and not being like, oh, I'm gonna stick with that and let people sort of, figure me out.
It's my style.
Between the lines that I'm a fucking monster. Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about it as a like, let's step away from Woody Allen and Sean Penn and everything else, and just like talk about it as an actual comedy, as an actual film. I think in part because I like love the Jazz Age stuff. I love the music. I love Sean Penn, like, in spite of myself. I love Samantha Morton. I love the like sort of honey glow of the coloring here, the warmth of it. These like individual scenes that I find just hilarious, like the part where they trick him into thinking like Django Reinhardt's there, and he like runs upstairs and he's like having this, like, there's just these like wonderful comedy moments that I find delightful, that if I like try and step back and just look at it sort of as a work, right, completely removed from the artist, I think it's a pretty like great movie. I really enjoy it, in spite of like the shortcomings and problematic elements of it. Maybe because of the sum of the parts, maybe that's sort of what I'm sort of drawn towards, that I'm very attracted to a lot of the parts. And I also think like one of the just as kind of a side note, that when we talk about movies from this year, I think, Julia, like, it's pretty obvious that like one of the fascinating things is that we see a lot of movies that are like movies that are very much the end of the 90s and movies that are very much the beginning of a new sort of era. And there's something about sort of the way this movie looks that looks like it could have been made yesterday. Like, it's very like, it doesn't look old fashioned. It's very sort of like modern in the way that it's sort of paced and told and framed, and a very sort of different sort of movie for that era, which I found kind of interesting. So yeah, I mean, that's sort of my like, I think ultimately it's just kind of like, in a vacuum, pretty delightful, despite its like obvious fucked upness in various points.
I found it texturally really lovely. It feels like you're there. It feels like a bit of time travel.
It does.
I can imagine, living in the period. Like, it's effective. I never got busted out of the story by an inconsistency on that front.
Yeah.
The texture of the film is very beautiful. Like, I love a slightly foggy image aesthetically in my own work. Like, I like messing with the image, and the fact that the medium is a bit not degraded. It's just what we were shooting on at the time. It looks like film because it's film, right? So I will say, from a story standpoint, like just looking at the work and not at the person, I started, the first time I checked the time, like how much is left in this, was when he left Hattie.
Yeah. Yep.
When we met Uma Thurman, I was like, oh, okay, what are we at?
She's great, by the way. Like, I think Uma Thurman's
she's great, but she's great, but she's mannered in a way that I wasn't quite sure was the character being pretentious.
Yes.
Or Uma Thurman trying to land a period. And
yeah,
I wasn't.
Yeah. I got you.
Like, she was leaning a little bit into the. Well, you see here, this. There was something. Because Uma Thurman to me is a very modern woman.
Yeah,
she looks like, now all I can see is Kill Bill, and that's maybe my own filter. But she has got such strong features. Like, there's the 30s face, face that's shaped like a heart and has the skinny little eyebrows, and all of. I don't even know if that's accurate. Did they have skinny eyebrows in the 30s?
Yeah.
There was a look, though.
Like the there's something, it's just it is mannered, but it makes me laugh so much. Like, where she's like where she's just like literally scribbling everything, like taking notes about him while she's like like trying to seduce him, and she's like he'll never love anybody as much as any woman as much as his music, and just like, I must get used to that. And the way she's just so blatantly like using her sexuality to trawl men for material, it's just like,
yeah.
Just like, what does it feel like to kill? The way she delivers all
just
those
over
lines.
and over. She couldn't stop asking, "What are you thinking about when you pull the trigger?" That was a lovely bit of business. I enjoyed that aspect of her character. But yeah. From there until I thought the breakdown, when he says, "I made a mistake," that was the only moment when I felt an emotional tether to the character. Because someone who's painfully narcissistic, embarrassing themselves on stage, or showing up drunk, or being unkind, I don't care about your pain if you're behaving like that. But this realization of the error was and he expressed it poorly. He threw a woman to the ground. Like, come on, buddy, do better. But that was the moment in the film where I was like, oh, yeah, I feel that feeling.
Yeah.
That was nicely done. It was nicely executed. Still a dickhead.
Yeah.
But we all know that feeling of, I made a mistake.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I'm with you, Liz. That like, when Uma Thurman first shows up, I'm like, wait, is Uma Thurman bad in this movie? And then within a few minutes, I'm like, oh no, Uma Thurman's very good in this movie. Okay, but yeah, it took me a minute to like adjust, because especially in that kind of moment of Uma Thurman, that was not where she was as like a performer, and like that it's. But yes, it's a very funny performance. Julia, overall, like.
Yeah, it's quite enjoyable. It's definitely like above the high above the watermark with Woody Allen films taken in total.
Yeah.
It's it's got that kind of it manages to pull off enough of that kind of like sentimental, wistful sweetness that I think the film is going for, that kind of makes it uh, less than like just like a caricature of an asshole.
Yeah.
And I think I think we didn't talk so much yet about like Woody Allen being a musician and like how much his experience and his interests as a jazz musician are coming into this film. But I do think there was while other stuff in the Sean Penn performance seemed manner to me, I do feel like that the real emotional core of the film is the pursuit of the beauty in the music, and to live up to your idol, and to like truly grasp something pure and deep that you have to find in music. And I do think that that was delivered well in the movie. So I think that on that, by that yardstick, it's definitely a success.
Yeah. We got to talk about Buena Vista Social Club at some point soon, because that's another one that's been on our list for a long time. That is a documentary that very much like explores similar kinds of themes as this. But yeah, so like from the Woody Allen as musician and Woody Allen playing himself perspective, I guess like the other thing about this movie that is sort of, if you're going to judge it as a narrative and aesthetically, is the framing of it as this like docudrama, right? Where there's these like actual scholars of jazz who are talking about this like fictional person as though he's real. Some of them pull it off very convincingly. Others are clearly reading a script, and like it's not always consistent. It's a very Woody Allen indulgent choice, because it's a way of getting himself into the movie, and him, again, like as Julia was saying, like talking about jazz, which he loves to do. But I liked it. Like I think it actually like I think it worked because the movie is kind of weirdly farcical, and it helps explain the farcical nature of the movie by presenting the idea of like the unreliable narrator, right? That like it's based on the legend of the musician, as opposed to like the actual life of the musician, right? And I think that was actually quite clever.
They should have. I waffled on this. I would have preferred to see him leave at 4:00 in the morning than hear someone tell me that he left Hattie at 4 in the morning. That's from a format perspective.
Sure.
Like
sure.
doing it, taking care of the exposition in interview blips. And also just pull the camera back a little bit, man. Just pull back a tiny bit on those interviews, please. And maybe don't put the text over people's faces. I don't know. Crazy.
Yeah.
That I was like, but also there was some telling that could have been showing that would have bought just a tiny bit of goodwill, any sense of emotional conflict about being a terrible human.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
any hesitation.
Yeah.
You
Sorry,
could
go
have
ahead.
gotten away without it for the most part, the narration.
Yeah.
I did kind of wonder almost if it had been requested by the studio as a way of
To explain the movie?
like being like, oh, kids these days, they don't understand 30s jazz. Like, we need somebody to explain it to them.
Well, I don't think kids were the ones, of the 250 theaters it was playing were the ones who were flocking to see it. But no, I don't know. I
think I enjoyed it a lot where they're talking about the stick up when he's in the car.
That was really cute.
It's like, okay, did this happen or did this happen or did he have an spiritual experience?
And the counterfeit money thing where he falls through the ceiling and
yeah. I feel like they could have done that as a runner, like that reframing. Like, did this happen or did A or B happen or A, B or C happen?
Yeah.
if I were, at the writing table, that would have been the offer. Like, this is your gimmick.
Yeah.
Which story is the real story? And then you can present the horrible version, the sympathetic version, something in between. And like, you're already doing, it's not really choose your own adventure, but it's like, here's a chunk of the story. And now we're going to cover some undefined amount of time between leaving this person and marrying this person, or going from this city to this city.
Yeah.
You don't have to shoot that part. It's great. You don't have to write that part of the story. You can just get somebody to say, and then this happened. But he almost played with the format enough
Yeah.
to satisfy my desire for playing with the format.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to do a mockumentary, do a fucking mockumentary. Mock it.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted at some points then to lean in on that more. And I think like if you'd done more of the sort of like multiple versions of the same scene, you also can like stretch Sean Penn a lot and like have him perform these like different variations. And I think that's something he'd be very good at. But it almost feels like the Woody Allen takes over, and like, again, his movie. So like, sure. But like, this is how Woody Allen frames this idea, where it could have been more entertaining, perhaps, to sort of play around more with those like multiple the legends as opposed to the actual history, for comedy's sake. Like it could have been great, but
it was very effective as a build up to the faint. Like that triptych of what happened at the store, at the gas station, was gorgeous.
Yeah,
really well done.
For sure.
I wanted more.
And the scene where he tries to buy the car, I just like, that's a great scene.
But I want it.
But I want, yes, I gotta have this car.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful car as well. Of the cameo performances, anytime Anthony LaPaglia shows up in anything, I'm like, I'm here. Let's do it. But like, Brad Garrett is one of the most like criminally underused people in human history. I mean, perfectly used in Everybody Loves Raymond, and like just legendarily awesome in that show. But like, as soon as Brad Garrett shows up as like the mob boss,
it's very believable that he would be someone who would be brought to tears by good guitar playing. I'll say that.
Yes.
That is one thing, like, that I think Woody Allen is always very good at, is like the background characters always feel very sort of like lived in, and like alive and real, and not just there to like deliver a line to move the plot along. But there's a sense in a lot of his movies that like every character has a life, which is that's a good writing trait.
Sometimes something they mentioned on the Woody Allen like American Masters PBS documentary was that he's very involved in picking people even for small roles.
Yeah.
And like when he sends the scripts, he'll write them a letter saying like, here's why I like you and here's why I think you're a good fit for
because
this
you're 18.
Yeah.
Do you want to go for coffee?
Julia, is there anything that we need to talk about before we start wrapping up?
Well, I did want to talk about what you were saying, John, about the like honeyed look of the 1930s in this movie that's so appealing, because it is something that Woody Allen like returns to again and again. Like there's so many of his movies, especially in the later period of his life, that are set in the like 20s and 30s, and I wondered if we wanted to talk about what's that about.
What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, I think like the jazz definitely has something to do with it, but I do think he sees it as like this, I don't know, perfect kind of like moment in time where like, like the place he wants to escape backwards into time, like where he kind of wish he had been, I guess, more alive in than he was.
The good old days, right?
Yeah, but like I guess kind of like music and culture and sophistication, and like him really really kind of seeing a lost world there he wants to preserve or revisit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you saying that, right? I just started thinking about sort of the later Woody Allen movies for which that's true, and the ones that come to mind are like Wonder Wheel, Vicky Cristina Barcelona, Midnight in Paris, a little bit, right? Like those movies, and that they all do have this, like, there is an almost kind of like clinical nostalgia that Woody Allen has. Like, there's something about, I think, part of his psychosis or whatever it is, right? His like neurosis plus this obviously very like dark side of himself, and this fixation on youth, right? That is certainly the kind of honey glow of the world that we see in this movie is very easily shorthand for that, right? There's sort of like this youthful, nostalgic kind of radiation coming out of it that I hadn't really thought about it before, because this is not necessarily, I don't necessarily associate this particular kind of visual aesthetic with Woody Allen, which is what I kind of found sort of appealing about this movie. That it is a lot warmer than a lot of his movies tend to be in like my mind. But you saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, I think there is a trend here that the movies that especially do kind of hearken to a kind of youthful innocence and nostalgia do sort of have that look to them. So, psychologists, do what you will.
But I also think, like, I kind of think that Midnight in Paris is one of his last great movies.
Yeah.
Precisely because it is about this idea of like, oh, the 20s and 30s were the story time for art and culture, and there are all these like exciting, zany, dangerous people who, some of them, could sleep with underage girls and get away with it also. But like, that it was this vibrant time and culture with all these colorful characters. And like Midnight in Paris is like the seduction of being able to go into that world, but then also realizing at a certain point you have to like leave it behind and live in reality. And I think that's like, I see that as him wrestling with some of his own bullshit in a way that makes it a great movie.
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly, it's got the glow of, when men were men and music was music and booze was booze and dames were dames, like it's hindsight is going to be hindsight, right? So you can look back on a time and choose to represent all the parts that you love without choosing to look at any of the really icky bits of that time period.
Yeah.
And he very much does that. There's no whiff, except that the jam sessions happen in a pretty cramped apartment. There's no whiff of like blatant racism. There's no whiff of the fact that those musicians that he was jamming with would have a very different career trajectory, or series of opportunities or day-to-day life. It's a bit sanitized for what the 20s and 30s actually were like for a lot of people. And it's about the Great Depression. My God, there's a whole lot of convenient omission in that movie. And again, that's not what it's about. It's about this one guy's journey from, I don't know, not self-awareness to 10% self-awareness. It's not about the Great Depression, really. But it does happen in it. And it's painted as a wonderful time when you can fall into a pile of counterfeit bills and go buy a car with it. With no repercussions.
The good old days.
The
good old days.
Bills in your arms. Not even with a bag.
Just
clutching them to your bosom.
And nobody asks any questions, and no one says, hey, can I see the back of that $100 bill? Because I think there might not be any ink on it.
They didn't have those little pens. You gotta have those little pens.
That's right. Yeah, the yellow pens.
The pens that do the thing. Yeah. Anybody who worked in a restaurant or retail in the 1990s and 2000s, the pen.
Oh, God. Put them under the light. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. You look at the thing and then, the little thing down the middle. Yeah. Uh-huh.
High tech.
Oh, those were the days. Anyways, all right. So we'll leave it there. We're gonna conclude here, Liz, with our last two questions for you. You're a first time guest, certainly not a last time guest.
Woo.
You're definitely coming back.
Woohoo.
Because I haven't talked to you in like, I don't know, like 20 years. It's been a long
I
time.
know, it's ridiculous.
I
And
mean,
the
aside from
only way we can catch up is on a podcast.
dude, I don't have a
You know
social
this.
life. Like, yeah, I know. You live in Canada.
Fair.
Like hanging out with Julie every 2 weeks is my social life, basically. That's
pretty solid, gotta say.
Yeah,
Julia, you're lovely.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it.
Yeah, Julie's got a new baby. I've got three. I've got three big babies that are like, two of them just turned 9. My 2 youngest kids just turned 9.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
It's killing me. I'm like a year and a bit away from a teenager. Fuck this. What? My kid's going to middle school next year. I can't do it. I know it's too much. Anyways,
No.
Liz, do you what is your favorite movie from 1999?
Oh, guys, seriously, how fast does time go? None of these are from 99. These are all from 5 years ago.
I know. That's one of the shticks of the podcast is. Remember Fight Club?
I gotta
that
say,
recent movie that came out.
Well, I was just gonna say, Fight Club is up there.
Yeah.
If only it weren't for the weird like incel interpretation.
Well, and the Matrix, the
that,
same thing. It's like we have the 2 movies that all the incels love for the wrong reasons, which is very fun.
Being John Malkovich, I gotta say, I think that's the one. Being John Malkovich is my top movie from 99.
Okay.
Just because it's so weird. And I'm my personal mandate for the past 5 years is lean into the creative weird. And commit to it.
Objectively a great movie. And do you know who is in Being John Malkovich playing himself, Liz?
John Malkovich.
One Sean Penn. So there you go.
One Sean Penn playing himself. Oh,
yeah, Sean Penn is in Being John Malkovich
into
as
a very
Sean Penn.
obvious question. I was like, John, have you seen the movie?
I think that's actually the only other Sean Penn movie of 1999, if I remember right. But there you go.
Goodness.
Yeah, great choice. That was in the very first round of 9 movies that we did in this podcast a long time ago, because it is one of the essential movies of that year. Do you have or what do you normally cite as your favorite movie ever?
Oh God, that's a very large question.
And you can answer it however you want. It's like you don't need to be like.
I can't tell you my favorite movie ever because there's too many.
Okay.
But I can tell you my most recent revelatory from a filmmaking perspective movie that changed the way I make movies, and that was The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which was sent to me as homework by my cinematographer for Cold. He said, what do you think about this? Because we were talking about what lenses to use. He's like, I'm thinking some wide angle lenses. What do you think about this kind of application? Told me to go watch it. I hadn't seen any press about it somehow. I, went into it not really knowing what I was about to watch and was very, very much entranced from the first shot. And it didn't let me go until the end. And that's rare. There's usually a phone check somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
No phone checks. I was like locked in. And I know that not everybody loves that movie. It's not everybody's piece of cake.
Yeah.
But it worked, and it was also tonally where I wanted to land with the movie I was making. So I was like, oh my God, somebody can do this weird thing that I'm trying to do. Brilliant.
Yeah, that's kind of like a big part of Yorgos Lanthimos' work is the lenses and doing stuff with the lenses, which some people hate, but it usually works really well for me.
Well, it's just, the compositions are all just they buzz. Like I'm a photographer as well. And when I get the right frame, it's like I can hear a tone or like I can feel it in my body. Like I can feel the good composition, and watching his work, this cinematography hits that button for me. I'm just like, oh, of course this is the right shot. Of course you shot this. Of course you went for the wide in the hospital and let Nicole Kidman be a quarter of an inch tall for this entire scene. Of course you did. It's perfect.
Yeah, no, that's a great choice. I like that movie a lot, even though I generally don't like Yorgos Lanthimos movies. I could not get through the what's the one with the Emma Stone that she Poor Things. I
haven't seen it yet.
And it's one of those very weird movies. I felt like very much an adult because I didn't stop watching it because I thought it was bad. I stopped watching it because I was like, this is just not for me. Like, I was watching it and I'm like, I understand everybody thinking this is brilliant, and it is, and like all the performances are great. Emma Stone is objectively fantastic, deserved the Oscar. I got through like 45 minutes of it. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, and like,
no.
I get it. It's great. Good job. Well done, everybody. Not for me.
Yeah.
Moving on. I did get through The Lobster, which I thought was like interesting. Like, it was quirky and weird and like unlike anything I had seen before enough to get me through it. But I liked Killing of a Sacred Deer a lot. I don't know why that one, especially, just like
there's something about it. It was absurd in a way that I really enjoyed. Like there's a scene. No spoilers, Julia. Have you seen it or no?
No.
Okay, well then we won't spoil it.
I won't say what I was about to say. Then there's a scene that should be very tragic, but ended up to me being very funny because of the way it was executed, and it's worth watching just for that scene.
All right,
because it's some of the darkest stuff. Somehow, Killing of a Sacred Deer managed to balance the dark and the absurd, and like the menacing unease feeling. Like, I felt very uneasy and what the fuck is going on throughout that film. In The Lobster, I really appreciated the visual poetry of everything that happened in the woods. Was very beautiful and like looked like paintings.
Yeah.
But the scene with the dog took me out of the story.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do it. I can't be here for that. I can't watch this scene. I fully exited.
I think it's because I got through all of that movie that I got halfway through Poor Things, and I was like, I get it. Like, it's this is I'm everybody on the internet who loves this movie. Good for you. Like, I'm totally on board with your love of this movie. I completely understand, but I'm going to go watch something else because I'm not 25 anymore.
The weirdness of The Lobster. There's something about absurd circumstances and people accepting them that I enjoy as a storytelling tactic. It's part of why everyone loves Severance so much. It's an absurd circumstance and everyone accepts it.
Yeah.
Has everybody seen the finale for Severance?
No.
Oh, God.
Julie, have you seen any of Severance?
Yeah, I'm working my way, but I'm still on the first season.
Okay, so yes.
Anyway, I can like leave this chat and you can talk about.
No. There's a thing that happens in The Lobster that I was worried was going to happen in Severance, and in Severance they don't do it, and in The Lobster they do.
Yeah. I think I know where you're going with that.
And if they had done it in Severance, it would have killed the fucking series for me. I would not have forgiven them for doing that thing.
I thought they were going to do it too, and I know what you're talking about, and I completely agree. And I even said that to my wife as I was watching it. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
I feel this coming.
Yeah. We had the same thing. We're like, they're not going to do it, are they? Oh my God.
Yeah, the four of our listeners who've seen The Lobster and Severance season 2 know exactly what we're talking about, and I'm sure you all had a great time just now. Julia, you're gonna love.
I hope I was oblique enough.
Yeah.
Julia, wait, have you seen Poor Things?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Okay, all right.
It was for me.
It was for you.
I kept thinking it was not going to be, and then it kept turning and twisting, and then like kind of curdling in different directions, and I was like, "Oh, this is."
It sounds right. I mean, that sounds like an accurate way of describing watching that movie. But yeah.
Curdled is a great adjective for Yorgos
but like in a positive way, in a way of like it just got kind of dank and nasty.
Yeah, for sure.
But I was gonna recommend his first movie, a Greek movie, Dogtooth. I don't know if you've seen it, but everybody
it's
out
excellent.
there,
The
in
scene
terms
with
of
the
accepting the absurd.
yes, well, the airplane bit just
Yeah.
did it for me. And that's one where you can feel the budget a bit. I find it very encouraging because you can tell that he was starting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as someone who, like, I never have the resources I want to make the things that I want to make, I find it encouraging to see someone stratospheric rise to, not even rise to fame, just rise to access like that. It's great. Because now he can imagine really huge, weird stuff and has the ability to make it happen.
And last thing I'll say on this is that for all the things I just said about Sean Penn and Johnny Depp, The Killing of the Sacred Deer, I actually do think Colin Farrell is the best actor of his generation. So I will.
I keep waiting for that good comeback for him.
Have you watched Penguin yet? Because damn, he's good.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
They couldn't cast a real half penguin, half man hybrid.
Well, not with these tariffs, you know. The tariffs are putting on penguins these days. Yeah, I will say, I at the protest I was at today, the whole penguin meme is really catching on with people with their protest signs, which I think is great. So,
it's just, absurd circumstances.
Yeah, a little ray of sunshine in these horrible dark times. All right, we're gonna leave it there. Liz,
okay,
really great to see you. Thanks for talking about Woody Allen with us.
Thank you so much.
Julia, it was great to meet you. This has been really fun. Thank you, guys.
Yes, we will certainly have you back again for another different fun movie. We're going to try and find something that's both funny and not problematic, but,
that would be
cool.
Happened
25 years ago.
Yeah. It was 25 years ago.
There's a lot of problematic people now. You can find us on Blue Sky at 1990 Podcast. You can find me on Blue Sky at John Brooks. You can find Julia on Blue Sky at Julia Sermons. You can go give us good reviews on Apple and Spotify and all that stuff. And until next time, take care of yourselves and look out for frogs. We'll see you next time.
All of me. Why not take all of me? Can't you see I'm no good without you? Take my lips, I wanna lose them. Take my arms, I'll never use them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on, dear, without you? You took the part that once was my heart, so why not take all?